Hello, everyone. Thanks for picking us. We are competing on this time slot with the Drupal CMS track leads keynote, which means that you could get 8 for the price of 1, but you decided to come here, so thank you.
2.
Well, I mean 1 initiative, not 2 persons.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for staying. If you leave, we won't blame you, but yeah, thank you for coming.
We won't shame you if you walk. Do you want to say who you are, Christian?
I'm Cristian Lopez. I'm Peñasquito on Drupal.org. I'm coming from Spain, and I work as an independent consultant. And I'm really thankful to Lullabot that sponsored my trip here. And you, Matt?
My name is Matthew, and I am Matthew Tift. I'm from Lullabot, and I have been around in the Drupal community for a while. I had my first core patch in 2010. That's when it was committed. So I've been around for a few initiatives. I helped with CMI, configuration management. I managed that system for about 10 years, helped get Olivero in. And at Lullabot, we work with lots of clients, including locally, like the state of Georgia, as well as Georgia Public Broadcasting. I don't know if any of you folks are in here, but yeah. I'm also a yoga teacher, so if you look me up on the internet, you might find a guy that's teaching yoga, and that's me. So that's me. We're also, most importantly, we're the track chairs of the dashboard track in Drupal CMS. So now you know who we are. And we're here to talk about the dashboard initiative. And basically what it all comes down to is that page that you see, the first thing you see when you log into Drupal. That initial experience. And we'll talk a little bit more about all of that today. But the way, I hit the wrong button. But this is our outline for today. So we're going to break it up roughly into the problems we're trying to solve, the key objectives of our initiative, and then get a little bit into the technical implementation as well as what's next for us. So we'll start then with what problems are we solving? So, show of hands, how many of you log into a new Drupal site and the first thing you want to know is how long have you been a member of the site? That is what we tell you. Right there. Member 4. So when I was making this slide, I created a Drupal site. It said, member for 40 seconds, admin. Yes, that is the first thing you see. Woohoo! And Christian and I, and a lot of other people, think there might be some more useful information than how long you have been a member. You might maybe agree with us, which is why you're here, or maybe you're just thinking, couldn't there be some other page that we could just use? We could just substitute. That page /user doesn't make sense, so maybe we'll do another page. But the main idea is Drupal, when you first use it, this is a graph from Dries' State of Drupal from 2019. Like, they did research, so these are real numbers and research, and I added a little circle at the beginning saying for a beginner, the experience, not so great. It gets great once you're an expert. So if you're new to Drupal, it's going to get better. But it starts down there. So basically, we think you start, like, one of the very first things you see when you log in is that screen, and you don't get to see that much. So the initial experience of Drupal. So you might, yeah, I kind of flipped the slides if you noticed. I've teed up this one before, but you might think we could just throw in some other first page, some other existing page, like admin content. Like, isn't that better? But this is what you might see if you logged into Drupal and were presented with that page, which is no content, and you would just have this list of things. So there's not really like an easy thing to just swap out. So this page happens to be quite useful, I think, for a lot of people if you're like a content editor and you go and you have a lot of content and you're just like, I just want to see that thing I was working on. But I think there could be all sorts of other information that might be useful when you log into your Drupal site. So for example, there's no way right now to show, well, I shouldn't say there's no way. There's no good place necessarily to show like site-wide communication. So it might be that you're an administrator of the site and you want your content editors to know something, and they might miss out on really important information because we don't have an easy way to convey that. So a dashboard could serve as a hub for these kinds of communication, ensuring that everybody stays informed. And knowing is what, half the battle or something. So what kinds of things might we show? So we could have various user messages, for example, when you log in. Say you have unpublished drafts or other things along those lines. So the idea is maybe right now we don't have a way to have information about scheduled maintenance or urgent alerts other than say, your modules need to be updated. Right now you might have seen that message. So we could add information about security updates, but there's just a lot more. So let's talk a little bit about how that might break down by user. So some of those things like security updates, they're just probably not all that useful to say the editors of your site. So different users might have different tasks that they want to do. So we have a few different user personas here, such as administrator, site builder, content editor, content manager. Depending on the kind of sites that you're managing, you might have your own personas, maybe a lot more, maybe a lot less, depending on the side of your site. But for example, we'll take a couple of them here just to give you a sense of what we're talking about, like the site builder, if you're not familiar necessarily with these terms, because maybe all of you came to this session for different reasons. So a site builder is somebody who builds, or in this sense, somebody who builds sites or builds Drupal through the UI. They might rely heavily on the UI for tasks, and they might want to do things like create content types or views, and sometimes it can be that the Drupal's UI is a bit too complex, maybe not interactive enough, so a dashboard could help them get the information that they need for site building. You also might have people that are more like administrator types of your site, and they might be people who are responsible for managing and maintaining a site. So these are the kinds of people who might be writing code and want to track new features and make sure that all the modules are up to date and that the development is progressing and not breaking things. They might be responsible to the site owner, so they might have like very different responsibilities, but you get the idea. I think that each of these types of people, from content editors to administrators to builders, they all might need different kinds of things and want to do different kinds of tasks. And ultimately, it's really not necessarily just about users, because sometimes they might wear different hats. So it should be possible. The kind of problem that we're trying to solve is it might be that we need to have different dashboards for different personas based on what you want to do. And you might be thinking, well, hasn't somebody already solved this? I mean, really? This seems so simple. And yes, lots of people have tried to solve this particular problem. There's login toboggan, and we have homebox and login redirect, a lot of different modules that people have tried to create that, like, say, redirect users to a particular page over the years, and related problems. There's also content planner and dashboards with layout builder is another excellent module that does something very similar, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. Another obvious thing is maybe if you've ever logged on to Drupal.org, you get your own sort of dashboard in Drupal as a Drupal user. So Drupal.o, or Drupal.o, D.o, Drupal.org provides a configurable dashboard based on the Homebox module, which was one on that previous screen. But not only Homebox, but other modules to put together this dashboard of different information that you want to know. So this sort of proves like there is a use case for this. And the module that we're talking about today is the dashboard module, which the first release of this module was actually 20 years ago. And so this is a topic that people have been trying to solve, and we want to acknowledge that. So I'm starting off by giving you a little bit of this history.
Yeah, so the dashboard was split from, like, it used to be in Drupal core, and it was removed in Drupal 7. And the reason is that there was not enough information to show there. Like, there were not country modules or even core modules that provided any information that was relevant there. So most people, what they do the first time they install Drupal is actually uninstall the dashboard module and the overlay module if you've been long enough into Drupal. So it was split from core to contrib, and nothing really happened there. So we took the namespace from there and we built this.
So then something happened at DrupalCon last year. Maybe you've heard of it, Drupal CMS. And when I wasn't there at the beginning, but when this initiative was started, and there's been other people before us too that have had this idea. So I don't want to get up here and say like, this is my fancy idea or Christian's fancy. I mean, lots of people, right? But this particular initiative, this dashboard initiative in its current form started with the idea of maybe getting into core, but then the Starshot initiative was announced, and some of us were so excited we went out and bought a sweatshirt for it because we thought that's so cool and Drupal's so exciting now, and we want the dashboard and that's how we became track chairs. So we came up with some key objectives for the dashboard initiative, specifically for Drupal CMS. And we wanted to be part of this thing that would be the launchpad for marketing success. So knowing that marketers were the primary audience, and I think the official documents say something like websites with a budget of $30,000 to $120,000, the marketing persona or ambitious marketers or something. There's all sorts of different phrases. You've heard it if you were at the keynote. We started off by saying, all right, well, we want to have a welcoming message should be part of this dashboard module. Therefore, it should avoid technical jargon, instead maybe use language that resonates with marketers, focusing on the benefits, the ease of use, sort of set the tone for Drupal, more so than just how many seconds you've been a user, maybe minutes, maybe years in some cases. We also think there should be clear steps for what to do after you install Drupal. Okay, I got it. Now what? So you could, for example, provide information about creating content, configuring settings, installing modules, setting up user accounts, all sorts of things like that. But then the dashboard module, not just for marketers, also for content authors, maybe they would want to know and want to have easy access to content creation tools, clear instructions, address their pain points. We also would like it to be something that marketers can use to quickly evaluate Drupal and give them perhaps, their own sort of analytics dashboards or campaign tracking features out of the box. So there's these sorts of things we would want to make it easy for marketers. So we had a long list of things to do, as well as technical requirements like making this work well with the gym theme in Drupal CMS ensuring a smooth and harmonious experience. That's what it's all about. And again, also making sure we have dashboards per role, so it's not just that one. So Christian now is going to start talking a bit about how we did that.
Yeah, so as Matthew said, at first, this initiative was born to be part of core. So we didn't want to use any of the models that we showed before because we wanted like something maybe more feature constrained, something smaller with core quality standards, and we spent like a ton of time, like mainly Meg and Christina from Lulabot, Andrew from I think he works for the University of Edinburgh, I hope I'm right. We spent a lot of time thinking about what should we put in a dashboard with a standard profile, because that's what we had at the time. And this is what we had in core. So lots of that research wasn't really that useful when Drupal CMS was launched, so we had to rethink about it. And the UX team and the leadership team from the Drupal CMS initiative, they came at first with this. So if you can read there, you have a welcome to your site. It said you what your login details were, because when you, like initially, Drupal CMS was gonna be using WASM, which means that it will be installed in your browser, and then you could export the site to some hosting somewhere. So you didn't even have to provide a password. So it would tell you your login details, and it would show you a lot of steps, like what you should do next, how to install new capabilities, the status of your site analytics, a summary of your content, and on the right you can see there's some actions like adding a page, adding an event, write a blog post. So one of the things that we had there is a list of steps. It's a checklist of what the person, the marketer that installed Drupal CMS for the first time, what they should go next. And we found out that there's actually nothing we could use to build this. There's a module which is the checklist API module, but it uses Drupal 6 standards already. Like there's a Drupal 8 version, but it used like Drupal, like it's a bunch of arrays and everything. And we wanted to have something similar, and actually something that could audit your site and detect that you already had completed this step, so it won't show you that. So this is something that we couldn't make in time for January, because this was announced in DrupalCon Portland. That's 8 months from when it was started, and we wanted to release on January 15, and then people had to actually work and research about what they want to have here. So we got the wireframes by end of August, I think. So it's like we didn't really have time to work on that. And they also iterated on some other stuff. So we ended up with this. We wanted to have a dashboard with the recent content. That top task or those checklists of actions of what you should do next actually became a menu on the right, so you can create content type, change your theme, settings, add users, whatever. Then we had another block for adding more capabilities to your site, which in summary this means when you install Drupal CMS in your installer, you can check which recipes you want to install, but maybe later you want to revisit that. So we wanted to have per browser to provide a blog doing this. And then we had the Drupal, the DA, Drupal Association announcements module, like telling you about what's next. Like maybe you want to attend DrupalCon Atlanta, or there's a Drupal 10 security fix or something like that. So we built most of this. So we built most of this. One thing that is missing right now, if you install Drupal CMS, is the project browser block. This is something that has been in the works and it's really close to land, but it's not there yet. And how can you improve this dashboard? So at the end, when we built this, we explored different options. We ended up using Layout Builder, which is the best thing we have right now. Maybe in the future, we want to explore integrating with Experience Builder or something, but this is the best solution we have now. So at the end, a dashboard is just a config entity. You can create as many as you need, and then we store the blocks that you select using Layout Builder. The order, you can have many dashboards, and the order you will see them is you only will see them, those that you have permissions for, like there are permissions for each dashboard. And the order will be defined by the weight. So you can wear different hats. You can have, as a person, you can feel different personas on your side. So you can have access to more information or more actions there. So, so the question now is, how can I customize dashboards or integrate with them? Like, if you are a contrib module maintainer or you are building a custom site for your client, how can you improve the dashboards that you provide? So, and this is one of the real issues. Like when, as I said before, the dashboard was part of Drupal 6, and it was removed because it wasn't that easy to provide content for it, and people really weren't providing content for it. So the solution for that is just creating blocks, providing blocks. So it's not a new API. We didn't want to introduce any new APIs or anything, like something Drupal developers were familiar with it, so it would increase the adoption of this. And we hope that if you maintain any contrib modules, you will provide blocks that may make sense for your users to include in a dashboard. So yeah, and this doesn't only mean writing blocks as a developer, but also anything you can do with views. You can create a block with views and provide the information you need. This is one of the highlights of the initiative. And it was kind of a meme because, yeah, there was one of the things that we did as part of this initiative is providing a blog for cleaning your cache in Drupal core. And people, yeah, made fun of it, but at the end, it's something that you might want to include on your dashboard. So what's next on the initiative? So one of the solutions that was available before we started with this is the dashboards with an S. So we are dashboard, singular. There's a dashboards, plural module. It's built on top of Layout Builder too, and they provide some other features for like customizing dashboard per user. So each user can say, okay, this is my dashboard, but I want to customize the blocks I personally see. And this is something that we didn't want to cover first because, as I said, we wanted to be in core, so we wanted to do fewer things, but doing them with Drupal core standards, and also like they provided some libraries, for example, for creating graphs or something like this, and we didn't want to make those choices for you. Like you might want to use another library for creating graphics or anything, so we didn't want to do that for you. But the idea is that dashboards module could build on top of ours, which is not doing it yet. So this is something that we might want to work on because this model already has some adoption. And also we want to check distributions or installation profiles or recipes or now site templates, whatever you name them, that might be interested in this. For example, I recently learned that Drupal Commerce is or Commerce Kickstarter is providing a dashboard now, and it's not using this. So maybe we want to be that framework that distros can use, so they don't need to build this by themselves. And then it would be easier to share those between different distributions or integrate. Like, one of the benefits of recipes is that you are not tied to a given profile. So maybe you have Drupal Commerce, but you are integrating that with another profile or another distribution. So for you, it makes sense to have a dashboard where you have commerce information and whatever other information. And that wouldn't be possible as is, because the Drupal Commerce dashboard only cares about commerce. So as I said before, one thing that we wanted the dashboard to is for installing functionalities. Like in Drupal CMS, you have several recipes and you decide to install the events recipe and the news recipe on your installation. And later you find that you want to have the SEO capabilities or SEO capabilities or whatever else. So in Project Browser, you will be able to see that blog there and install it from your dashboard. And this is something that it's 90% done. So we hope to have that in the next release of Drupal CMS. And also, like, this idea of having a checklist of next steps that you wanted to do. We defined an architecture for Checklist API, for a new implementation of Checklist API. We just didn't have time to do that, but we probably will consider that in the future, like implementing that and converting that checklist or that menu on the right to some kind of checklist that can auto-detect if you, for example, already configured your theme, it won't show that option, or it will show as complete. And at the end, we don't really know if we want to do this anymore, but still the goal might be to actually be part of Drupal core, like if distributions start adopting it, or the new site templates start adopting it, and it's widespread, maybe it actually makes sense to be part of core. If you want to help, to be fair, there's not a lot of issues that we have to work on. There's a couple of bugs, so we won't have a table at the sprints, but you probably will find us there. So if you want to work on something here, or you are interested, feel free to find us and ask about anything tomorrow at the contribution rooms. And yeah, this is the Drupal Code of Conduct that you already know of, and that's it. If you have questions, now is the time. Thank you. Should I? No, this is not wireless. Maybe you do the question and I repeat.
So how does it manage multiple dashboards? Does each dashboard get a separate page, and which dashboards I have access to depend on my roles and permissions? And also, does it actually depend directly on the role, or does it depend on a permission per dashboard?
Yeah, so you can see the dashboards. Like, one of the things that we do is when you log in on the site, we redirect to admin/dashboards. And there you have your dashboard. Your main dashboard will be determined by the permissions. Like, you will see one dashboard that you have access to, and then by weight. Like the lower weight is the first dashboard you'll see, and there are tabs inside there. So you have admin/dashboard will show you your main dashboard, but then maybe it's admin/dashboard/site content. and you will see that as local tabs on admin/dashboard. And you asked about the roles-based. So when we started, we thought about doing it based on roles, but then we figured out that people might have different roles or feel different personas. So we had a permission-based dashboard. So it's not really about the role per se, like not the role you have assigned on your side, but about when we talk about roles or having dashboard per role, it's like dashboard per persona that you might have. You can ask and I'll repeat.
Okay, so how is decided what is shown on the default dashboard when you install Drupal CMS? And since that will change through the different, on the future of the newer version of CMS, is there any kind of mechanism, or are you planning on having any kind of mechanism of letting know user that there are new things that you can add on the dashboard, or maybe add it automatically to people's dashboard?
Yeah, so the question is, how did we decide what should be on the dashboard, and what will happen when new upgrades provide new dashboards or decide to provide new functionalities that might go into the dashboard? So in Drupal CM, one of the things that we are doing, and we haven't completed yet, is providing a config action so recipes can integrate with the dashboard. And a recipe could say, I want to add a block to this concrete dashboard in this position. So this way, different recipes, including those in Drupal CMS, could expand the default dashboard. So that's one. And another thing is for new releases, and one of the main goals of recipes and Drupal CMS itself is not really caring about upgrading in terms of providing an upgrade path for your stuff, because that's one of the issues that had distributions and profiles that made them so hard to maintain and so hard to use them together, like using different profiles together. So that's actually one thing that recipe solve is not caring about that. So in terms of Drupal CMS, probably we will have a change record saying, this is what you're missing. If you want to do this, you can do it manually this way. That's what Drupal CMS is doing for upgrades from 1.0, for example, to 1.1, is that in the release notes, they provided the steps for doing those changes manually. Like you will get upgrades for your modules, but you won't get, for example, like the new default content or new default configuration. So they provide the steps to do it by hand.
Yeah, I would just add, like, this is just a module, and it provides, Drupal CMS is a recipe. So just like any of those other enhancements, we have release pages with this information, and we have other mechanisms to try and do things, but this is kind of an ongoing discussion with how recipes work and how they evolve and new things get added.
Is there parity between the contrib module and what's in core or in Drupal CMS core?
So actually in Drupal CMS, what it's provided is it's the module itself, like it's the country module plus some configuration, but you can do the same. The only thing that it's a bit different is the navigation integration, because there was something missing there that in Drupal CMS you could just solve by providing some default configuration. So if you install Drupal separately, and you install the dashboard module separately, and you install the navigation module separately, for integrating those, you might need to do some manual changes, but we hope to have that resolved by next release, which will be quite soon.
Yeah, I would also add too, just like as of Monday, Christian is now a Drupal CMS committer, and the whole sort of Drupal ecosystem, in my view, seems like it's changing a little bit. Gabor gave a talk earlier today talking about, you know, Drupal core and how that kind of is changing, and how Drupal CMS is the new thing that they're recommending. So a lot of this stuff can be added more quickly, more, you know, if people have great ideas that we want to pull in, you know, you don't have to go through all the core gates to get something in the dashboard module or into a recipe. Like Christian can literally just commit that. So this whole process of like how Drupal is built and how these features are added I mean, we have a lot of stuff we're kind of figuring out now, but to me that's a little bit mind-blowing because it's a different mindset than we had 15 years ago. Benji?
You say you don't have to go through the Drupal core gates as if that's a feature. I consider the Drupal core gates to be a feature. And maybe we should tell people what they are.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I say that like that's a good thing. I actually, you know, I asked a question at that session about about what happens to accessibility and all sorts of other things. But the Drupal core gates are the very rigid process that any code that has to go through to get into Drupal core. Drupal CMS does not have those same core gates, but we do try and apply the same basic principles,
Yeah.
but it's not so structured.
The funny thing is that it doesn't follow the core gates, but there are different gates now. And one of the things is that Drupal CMS wants to be able to innovate fast, even if it's not perfect. But also at the same time, it's the first time that we build something with the user experience is the first thing that comes to mind, and we are thinking of users. So for example, things like usability or accessibility, I think it's something that actually will benefit from Drupal CMS. Like, it will get more accessibility eyes and more usability eyes on country models that are included there, which is something that we are lacking now. That there are some eyes on, I know you work on that, there are some eyes on accessibility on Drupal core or usability on Drupal core, but then you don't find the same experience in country models. So I think this, at the end, will be benefiting like the contributed models ecosystem too. But that's a bit off topic too. So. So if you don't have any questions, thank you for the time, and maybe you can catch with the last update on the Drupal CMS keynote later.